Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachare Jamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Mishnupad Paramahansa Purivrajakachadas Tatara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purivrajakachadas Tatara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki, Karanta Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Gaur Premanandi. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Continued reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, additional pastimes. This chapter is still a summer in Montreal. It's a very funny story. This is Gopal Krishna Maharaj. At that time, Gopal Khanna. So this is 1968 in Montreal. A friend of Gopal's, let's see, where does it start? The day before Srila Prabhupada had arrived in Montreal, Gopal had received an invitation card from a devotee. Because for the past year, Gopal had been seriously wanting to understand God. He had been interested in his spiritual search. He had been attending services in his spiritual search. He had been attending services at a Hindu temple in Toronto, as well as visiting various other churches and temples. He had given up meat eating and smoking. On coming to the temple and seeing the excitement of the devotees in preparing for Prabhupada's arrival, Gopal had asked to help. So one of the devotees had instructed him to help clean Prabhupada's apartment. Prabhupada had taken an interest in Gopal. Well, although he had never met a sadhu before and didn't know what to think at first, respected Prabhupada. A friend of Gopal's, Mr. Mukherjee from Calcutta, also began attending Prabhupada's lectures. Mr. Mukherjee, who claimed to have spiritual knowledge, told Gopal that although he had touched the feet of many Indian sadhus throughout India, never had he met anyone as saintly as Prabhupada. Gopal took his friend's endorsement of Prabhupada very seriously. and soon he was attending all the lectures in the temple and chanting Hare Krishna on his beads, acting like a regular devotee. He would usually be the only Indian to remain through the kirtan and lecture in the temple. Then afterwards he would stay and have hot milk with the devotees, returning home around 9:30. Associating with the devotees and being of the same age as they, Gopal automatically included himself among the intimate disciples who regularly visited Prabhupada at his apartment. Prabhupada asked Gopal about his family and background in India and encouraged him to take up Krishna consciousness. When Gopal told Prabhupada that he had been chanting Om, Prabhupada explained that by itself Om was incomplete. If he wanted to chant Om, Prabhupada said, then he should chant Om Krishna. Time and circumstance. We can discuss that. The specific quality of the spiritual master is that he, according to time and circumstances, he can deliver to each disciple, just for his understanding, the philosophy without any adulteration of the essence. So this is, and Prabhupada stresses this, in a lecture in Mayapur he said the same thing, is that there are 4 sampradayas, and he gave a little brief description, but the bottom line, he said, is that the essence must remain the same in any presentation of the philosophy. When we're speaking to people, we may use some contemporaneous analogy, but it cannot deviate from the essence. So we always have to be conscious of how Prabhupada is giving, how he's presenting, and how we should learn from his presentation. That yes, time and circumstance, no deviation, maintain the essence. One night, Gopal was present as Prabhupada discussed the financial problems of the Montreal temple. Although the temple rent was only $150 and expenses were minimal, the devotees were struggling. At one point in the discussion, Prabhupada turned to Gopal and asked, "So, Gopal, what is your solution to this financial problem?" Guessing that Srila Prabhupada might be hinting for him to contribute money, Gopal said he didn't have a solution. Prabhupada lectured at a nearby Christian school, and Gopal and his friend Mr. Mukherjee attended. When after the Kirtana lecture, Prabhupada asked if there were any questions, Mr. Mukherjee raised his hand, stood up, and to the shock of the devotees, began insulting Prabhupada. It is not a fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mr. Mukherjee said before the half hall filled with Christian students and ministers. You should not speak like this in a church. Why do you say that Krishna is the Supreme and that we should surrender to him? Prabhupada remained calm, although the attending devotees, looking furiously at Mr. Mukherjee, could barely restrain themselves. Prabhupada didn't even speak. He simply called on someone else in the audience and allowed the unpleasant event to pass. Some days later, Prabhupada asked Gopal about Mr. Mukherjee, who hadn't come by recently. To Gopal's surprise, Prabhupada asked to see Mr. Mukherjee again. Gopal, considering Mr. Mukherjee too envious and blasphemous, advised Prabhupada against it. No, it does not matter, Prabhupada said. I must have done something against him in my past life, and now he has taken his revenge. Please call him. This is also similar to what Chanakya Pandit says. Chanakya Pandit indicated that the enemy takes birth as the sun. Have you heard that? Because we see that many times the son gives trouble to the father, to the parents in general. So Chanakya Pandit indicated that the enemy takes birth as the sun. So Prabhupada is confirming that there is some relationship. Gradually, some of the Indian visitors responded to Srila Prabhupada and began to give money to support the temple. Most of them, however, were reluctant to spend money or time apart from their career and families. Indian culture, Prabhupada said, had completely fallen due partly to foreign invasions into India and partly to India's leaders madly abandoning their original culture in favor of Western materialism. But still, Prabhupada told the devotees, if there is any civilization left anywhere, it is in India. In India, they are all originally Krishna conscious, and with a little chanting and taking prasadam, their material covering can be removed. Srila Prabhupada ki. Is that true? We know it's true because Prabhupada said it's true. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
The speaker's pointing right at the...
Yeah? So what does that mean? Is there feedback? Yeah? Okay, you gotta watch out for that. You have to be an audiophile to know these things. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 12th chapter. Text 19, chapter titled, Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. And if it's still feeding back, it means the gain is too high, so that can be controlled. Sadadarsha Vimanagryam. Sadadarsha Vimanagryam. Nabhaso Vattarajava. Nabhaso Vattarajava. Vibrajaya Dasadisho. Vibrajaya Dasadisho. Rakapatimivoditam. Rakapatimivoditam. Please chant. Sadadarsha Vimanagryam. Nabhaso Vattarajava. Vibrajaya Dasadisho. Rakapitamivoditam. Darsha Vinagrayam. Namaso Vattarajava. Vibrajya Dasidisho. Rakapatimivoditam. Sadadarsha Vimanagriyam. Namaso Vattarajava. Vibrajaya Dasadisho. Rakapatamivoditam. Asha Vimanagrayam. Nabhaso Vattarajava. Vibrajaya Dasadisho. Rakapatamivoditam. Ladies. Dasha Vinagraya. Nabhaso Vattarajava. Vibhajaya Dasadisho. Rakapatimivoditam. Anyone else? Sa he Didarsha, soar, Vimana, an airplane, Agrayam, very beautiful, Nabasa, from the sky, Avatarat, descending, Dhruva, Dhruva Maharaj, Vibrajayat, illuminating, Dasha, 10, Disha, directions, Rakapatim, the full moon, Eva, like, Uditam, visible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As soon as the symptoms of his liberation were manifest, he saw a very beautiful airplane coming down from the sky, as if the brilliant full moon were coming down, illuminating all the 10 directions. Purport. There are different levels of acquired knowledge: direct knowledge, knowledge received from authorities, transcendental knowledge, knowledge beyond the senses, and finally, spiritual knowledge. When one surpasses the stage of acquiring knowledge by the descending process, he is immediately situated on the transcendental platform. Dhruva Maharaj, being liberated from the material concept of life, was situated in transcendental knowledge and could perceive the presence of a transcendental airplane which is as brilliant as the full moonlight. This is not possible in the stages of direct or indirect perception of knowledge. Such knowledge is a special favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can, however, rise to this platform of knowledge by the gradual process of advancing in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timranda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kaloti Shalam Pangul Manghaitem Garat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Srinvata Sakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaya Bandra Testament Vidunoti Saritatam. Very interesting how this description indicates that this airplane was not a visible manifestation. Described that it could be perceived only due to indirect perception of knowledge. So we have some appreciation, even in the waking state or in the dreaming state. There's a difference, obviously, but the subtle manifestations of objects perceived are only tangible depending on the state of consciousness. So in waking consciousness, one can perceive those things which are gross manifestations, bhumirapo nalo vayu kamano buddha evacha. And then there's ahankara iti ame, bina prakrita. So we think sometimes in our immature realization that Krishna should appear before us somehow or other. We're thinking, why doesn't Krishna? Why can I not perceive Krishna in his Vaibhav or his various, like the gopis? Krishna was always with them, but in his emotional aspect. And this Vaibhav, this emotional, is not perceived by the mundane materialist. Although people are trying very in so many ways, artificially, to concoct some, just like intoxication. People are taking some intoxication to have some vision. Maybe you know that there is some South American fad, you could say, where people go for to achieve some whatever, and they take this very potent herb concoction. How is it called? Ayahuasca. So all these psychedelic, psychogenic herbs, by the very nature of their manifestation, they are material, and they cannot give anyone beyond that the limitations that this material elements can provide. And so it's only a fool's attempt to try to achieve this spiritual vision by material means. And Prabhupada in the early days used to address devotees, and devotees would ask questions like, can LSD help one achieve some spiritual realization? And Prabhupada said, no. How can anything material help you? But yet people were, because it was a step above their mundane experience, they misunderstood it to be something transcendental. But this is just, what does the Prabhupada say? Incomplete knowledge of the complete, or a poor fund of knowledge. And so these Prabhupada's coining these terms, a poor fund of knowledge, incomplete knowledge of the complete, was to try to bring devotees to a little understanding how to judge certain things that may present themselves. Like we're here every day seeing the beautiful forms of the deities, but what are we seeing? And what is our perception? And so we have to be very careful in also discussing such topics amongst those who are not introduced into the line according to our parampara. One should stick to very basic preaching. We saw Prabhupada emphasized, what is that? We are dehinosmin yatadeha. We're not these bodies. If a person can grasp that, then he has a little opportunity to appreciate that which is beyond his material perception. Because it takes a level of intelligence not found amongst the general population. If you tell someone that he is not his body, immediately you can understand, based on his reaction, where he is as far as consciousness is concerned. Material, spiritual, aspiring, innocent, ignorant. And that can determine the next level of conversation. There's even the Bible has a very poignant saying. It says, cast not your pearls before swine. In other words, don't try to disturb the minds of the less intelligent. Because if they cannot understand, it simply creates, like Mr. Mukherjee, some inimical response. Because he could no longer relate the situation. And that's, again, we discussed the spiritual master's specific quality, that according to the time and circumstances, he can deliver to the individual disciple, not the general. There are so many general, Bhagavad Gita is being presented to the general population. And then according to your relationship with your spiritual master, you will have a certain realization at a certain point. Based on that, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Deve Tathaguru, based on your faith in the spiritual master. That is Mamaya Vangso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. That this is not an accident, but one cannot get a guarantee that he will remain in any of these positions. He simply gets the opportunity, but the outcome is not guaranteed. So this is the essence, that we are all getting the opportunity, but it is up to us to add the main ingredient, which is that one has to apply himself the functional deity. We see that Govinda is the functional deity to establish one's relationship through the medium of service, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. So for the neophyte who has come in contact and has developed some attraction, he has to progress to the next level of how can I serve? How can I develop this relationship? What can I do to make further progress? Unless he comes to that point of thinking, what can I do to make further progress? And he remains simply an observer, then the result will be very, how can you say, minimal. He will remain just on a superficial level, appreciating that this is a nice movement. They have some good points. Maybe they have some points I'm not so keen on. But all in all, a favorable impression, but nothing more. So they consider it in the category of just another tradition, another religion, nothing more, nothing less. But those persons who have been, like, what was the difference? We saw that Gopal Krishna Maharaj. What did the devotees do? They didn't just say, read Bhagavad Gita, study carefully, that's good. No, they gave him an opportunity for devotional service. This is what makes the difference. Prabhupada said the temple is only to make devotees. And how do you make devotees? You don't make them, there's no cookie cutter, there's no recipe that says you have to do this, do this. That's been tried. The point is, a person has to, when he's engaged, if he's doing it with the right attitude, anyabhilashata sunyam jnana karma dinavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. He will get the benefit. He's doing it without any personal motivation. He was cleaning Prabhupada's quarters. Besides washing the pots is a preliminary qualification. Just like you have a prerequisite when you go to school. You have pre-med, you have pre-this, you have pre-that, so many pre-this. So the first thing the devotees, they take you to, because anybody can wash pots. And Prabhupada there was no restriction. It didn't matter what condition you were in. You could have been homeless on the street. And Prabhupada said, washing pots is like taking a bath. He said, everybody can wash pots. Pot room was separate. On Henry Street, where I joined, pot room was off to the kitchen. So it wasn't part of the kitchen. It's not that you were in the kitchen in an unclean state. Right? But if the devotees saw that you were attentive and that you were effective and that you washed the pots with some, how can you say, purpose, not just mechanically, not just superficially, but to get the maximum, the pot, Prabhupada said, the inside and the outside is the same. So sometimes we see that the pot is not very clean on the outside, even in our kitchen. But we were taught from the very first stage, the inside of the pot and the outside of the pot is the same, just like externally and internally. One takes bath externally, and internally he chants the Maha Mantra. Chaita Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavadi Nirvapana. So if one is not understanding the holistic totalitarian approach to washing the pots, then he won't get the benefit. He won't get the full benefit. Nehabrikama Nasasti. He gets benefit. But obviously there was some sincerity, and Prabhupada saw it, and the devotees saw it as well. So they said, cleaning Prabhupada's quarters is not something that usually is given to someone who has no understanding of the position of who Srila Prabhupada is. Otherwise, you go into Prabhupada's room, you clean his quarters, there's so many paraphernalia that could easily be mistaken. Somebody one time stole Prabhupada's pen. You know, they're thinking it's just nice pen, let me have it. So it was a great honor to be able to clean Prabhupada's room. And to get that opportunity, if you had the appreciation, you got the benefit. It's as simple as that. If you think that cleaning Prabhupada's room or cleaning the tables in Balaram Hall is different, and you have appreciation for one and not the other, then your knowledge is incomplete. Because you see a distinction. And this distinction makes all the difference. It's actually the definition of someone who's making advancement in spiritual life, is that he can engage in any service, understanding that this service is not different, that the pujari, that the cook, that the floor cleaner, that there is absolutely no difference in Krishna's eyes, in the eyes of the spiritual master, and on the transcendental platform of service itself. So we have to become free. And what is that freedom? What does that say? That sarvapati vinir muktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikesha rishikam. That one has to have completely free from any material designation, any upadis. These upadis are like stumbling blocks on the path to spiritual life. And they have to be removed one after another. And you have to do it at the same time that you're maintaining the Bhakti Lata Bij. Everything is being done. And how is that? We're following the process of Vaidhi Bhakti. Rising early, attending Mangalartik, or taking bath, attending Mangalartik, chanting japa, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So these things are the routine activities to keep one's level of consciousness pure and to become protected from Maya's continuous attempts to try to distract one from the path. This ability to maintain this steadiness, there was a discussion and there was a posting. Matunapur was mentioning that the word stayibhav, or the term, is seen repeatedly in Prabhupada's books, thousands of times. But it's depending on the understanding and the context. Basically, it means one is on a steady plumb. Bhav means emotion. Sthayi means steady. So one has to be fixed. It cannot be whimsical. It cannot be capricious. It cannot be complacent. It has to be, in all circumstances, steady. And that means not up and down. Not one day I'm enthusiastic, one day I'm this, one day no. That is, unfortunately, the circumstances due to the mind's flickering and unsteady nature. By definition, the mind is flickering and unsteady. So how can one become sthayi bhav if one's mind is flickering and unsteady? He has to keep it constantly engaged in service, thinking about executing it, anticipating it. These are all the things, practical ways that one continuously maintains this level of consciousness that precludes any interruption by material thoughts or actions. But it's a purposeful, conscientious endeavor. It doesn't happen by accident. Krishna is very merciful. Sarvasya chaham riddhisani visto. He's ready to award you causeless knowledge and detachment, vidya, vinaya, everything. He's ready to award you everything. But he has to see that you're ready, willing, and able. Even the materialists, they use these three words to denote that a person is properly situated in order to perform or function in a specific position of responsibility. Otherwise, there are many people who can do any menial task. That's there. I mean, there's the fourth order. There's the Brahman, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. So of all those, Brahman is the smallest amount in the population. And the Kshatriyas are the next, and then the Vaishyas are greater, and then even greater still are the unskilled labor. And so Prabhupada, I've come to your country. He said, I've come to your country to make brahmanas. And what is a brahmana? Brahmana janatiti brahmana, one who knows Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishtam. And if you know Brahman, it means that all of your actions will be guided by that realization and conclusion. But if one day you're acting on the level of Brahman and the next day you're acting on the level of the mind, no, I don't feel like doing this, then this disconnect simply creates a greater rift in your consciousness, and it becomes more difficult to put it back together. And so if one wants the easy solution, then he just always remains in a service mood, ready to do whatever is required, to do the needful. The spiritual master is always willing to engage, but are we willing to serve? And so that willingness makes all the difference in one's advancement in spiritual life. There is no substitute. Has to be vyavasaya amika buddhir ekeha kurunandana. If one doesn't develop this one-pointed consciousness, attention, however you want to define it, then inevitably one's intelligence becomes many-branched, and his mind is just jumping around. Maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to do that. What is the common saying? The grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Right? The cow is thinking like that. But the analogy has stood the test of time. And it's a fact. People think, no, maybe if I go here, it will be better. But what was Prabhupada's response? You know, Prabhupada? Wherever you go, your mind goes with you. So what's the difference? Someone is thinking, no, this temple, it's too rigid. There's no independence. I can't do what I want to do when I want to do it. The whole point of a temple is to be so structured that there is not a moment of Maya. But one has to understand that. What was Prabhupada's intention? If we understand what was Prabhupada's intention, then we don't have any objection. I'm simply following in Prabhupada's presentation his prescient. The ability to see the future is called prescient. So the spiritual master is Tri Kalagya. He can see past, present, and future. So he knew that some unstructured situation would not provide the proper environment for advancing in spiritual life. They needed to be just like in a school. It's not that you can expect to get your diploma by not attending the lectures, not taking the notes, and not taking the exams. You could say, no, I signed up. I was on the campus every single day. But I was in the, what do they call that place where you play ping pong and billiards? The recreation center or the recreation hall. If you're not mature, then yes, you go to the school, but you don't go to the class. You go to the gym, the pool, or the recreation hall. And you become expert in ping pong. But then when you question, oh, how come I didn't get my diploma? Did you attend class? Did you take the test? But I was on the campus every single day. No, so the temple has a lot of opportunity, but are we taking full advantage of it? Are we looking for every single service opportunity that the temple has to offer? I can think of one, Krishna Hall. So much opportunity. You could spend lifetimes in Krishna Hall. And Krishna has just his, as a matter of fact, when we first came, they used to call these places the bingo hall. And before us, the person who sponsored the construction was a famous singer of Jewish descent called Sophie Tucker. So the name of that building is actually the Sophie Tucker Memorial Hall. When we bought the building, we had all the papers. But it was used as a bingo hall for years and years. But when we came back to the temple in 2018, people are still calling this the bingo. Why? It's not a bingo hall. What are we calling it the bingo hall? So we named it Krishna Balaram, Krishna Hall and Balaram Hall. So obviously, Balaram is holding everything up. He's Sankarshan. So he's the basement. Everything is manifested and held on his hoods. He's the active principle of gravity. And Krishna is on top. So there's no shortage of opportunity. And if one is enthusiastic, then everyone he sees and meets, he says, just like they engaged Gopal Krishna Maharaj, yes, come and please help. They don't just try to enthrall them with their academic understanding of Krishna conscious philosophy just to get some, whatever. No, they say, Prabhu, I have some service to do. Maybe you'd like to come and help me. This ability to engage a person in Krishna service is the epitome of what the temple is meant for. And so we should never be shy. And if a person is not keen to serve, and ultimately, Prabhupada said, you give him prasadam, you send him home. Okay? You should not just come regularly without doing service. Prasadam, taking prasadam is service, but it's the service that requires an additional level of participation. Otherwise, we're wasting time. Go to the next person. Just like on book distribution. If a person doesn't want the book, we don't waste time trying to convince him. Unless there's some opening, we go to the next person. All right? This is a common thing. It happens all day, hundreds of times a day. So if a person comes to the temple, yes, it's a special opportunity for that person. But if he doesn't take it, that's fine. Come again next time. But they have to know that if you're coming regularly like that, no, Prabhu, do some service. Come to class. That's the minimum. Listen to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Take prasadam with the devotees. Sit with the devotees, discuss the Bhagavatam class, hear the philosophy. Next stage is to engage. You could tell a lot. Gopal Krishna Maharaj could have turned around and said, no, I don't want to clean. That alone would have basically disqualified him at that time. And it's happened many times. I mean, if it hasn't happened to you yet, it will happen. You have to know what is compassion. Sometimes you have to give a little hard love. I was telling Dr. Michael the other day, sometimes you have to give someone a little hard love, and I think, oh, I'm losing this opportunity. I have to become more serious. Okay? Otherwise, they think it's material. It's just a free meal. So they have to get some appreciation that this is special. And they can't get it if you don't give it to them. If you just think, no, it's okay. No. Don't be sentimental. Okay? Otherwise, you become, how can you say, what is that in the Sri Ishopanishad? It says, the killer of the soul. What does that mean, the killer of the soul? Very interesting term. A person who does not take to spiritual life, who has the opportunity, but who does not take it, and the person who comes in contact with that person and does not give it, then he's just the same. You're letting that person go away without making every effort to engage him in Krishna service. Because that's the only thing that will lead to the next stage of realization. They can take copious notes. We have one guest, Jim. He comes, takes tons of notes. But he remains on the, what is that verse? Yasya Devi Parabhakti Yata Deve Tatagaru Tasyati Kartitayata Prakashante Mahatmana. Okay? He can't get to that level. But why? Why doesn't he have faith? Because he's not getting any realization. Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavati Kinchana. He's not developing the good qualities automatically. Those good qualities are coming from engaging in service. Harava Bhaktasya Kato Mahagad. Otherwise, he remains on a mental platform. You have to bring them down to earth, down to the spiritual world, down to the temple is Vaikuntha. Don't project your inhibitions. Oh, maybe it's too, he doesn't understand. Nobody has to understand that washing the pots is transcendental. They don't have to understand that at that level. They just have to do it. Krishna does the rest. So we constantly make an attempt to try to engage every individual in some service. Because we know it's the best thing for them. That is our duty, is to know what is the best for that person. Just like the doctor. Person says, I don't want to take that medicine. Okay. That's okay. Then continue to suffer. I can only try to prescribe. I can only diagnose. But ultimately, if the person doesn't take the medicine, then what can be done? But your duty is to try to administer it to the best possible way. Of course, giving the book is the best thing. But making sure and question, hey, did you understand? What did you understand from that book? If they get an opportunity to read teachings of Lord Chaitanya, they'll understand that service is everything. Service is everything. The amazing thing about the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the summary study, just like Krishna book, is a summary of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Prabhupada's unique contribution to the Gaudiya Vaishnava pantheon of literature. And along with that, the other unique contribution is the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. Totally unique. Prabhupada's realization, condensed and codified for us. So it is especially important to read teaching of Lord Chaitanya. More important to read teaching of Lord Chaitanya than to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Once you read the TLC, understanding Chaitanya Charitamrita is very much enhanced. There was no Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Teachers of the Lord Chaitanya came out, Prabhupada was just beginning. And so he had chapter by chapter we used to get from the ISKCON press, the 5 Features of Lord Chaitanya. Small little pamphlet, extracted from the Adi Leela. So all these things were there, but gradually. So Prabhupada thought, I may not last. So immediately presented this unique presentation and unique gift to the future followers of ISKCON as the teachers of Lord Chaitanya. There's nothing else like it. If everyone who reads, everyone who gets a chance to read, he will never have any questions or doubts about spiritual life, about Krishna consciousness, about ISKCON, about the position of Krishna, about his myriad forms, emotional forms, manifest forms. Every question you could ever possibly conceive of is answered in the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. So how many people have read TLC? Now it's your homework. You should be reading every day TLC, at least a few paragraphs. It's very easy. You can download the app. What's it called? Be a Sage, page by page. By Shesha Kapoor gives a very nice app. You can go to Google or the Apple Store. Be a Sage. And you simply select Teachers of Lord Chaitanya. And you how quickly do you want to read it? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? And we'll tell you need to read this page, how many pages? Every day. Very quickly you're done. You don't even have to put down your phone. It pops up right there. You have to have an internet connection. Because it seamlessly connects with the database. And you can bookmark it, you can save it. It knows exactly where you left off. Such nice facility. We didn't have that. We had to carry around our Teachers of Lord Chaitanya everywhere we went. Or our Nectar Devotion, or our Bhagavad Gita, or sometimes all 3. And now you have everything very simple. No excuse. No excuse to understand what Prabhupada was trying to convey to us in so many different ways by establishing the temples, by telling us how we should engage the public and why. And so take this knowledge, implement it, internalize it, disseminate it. Everything is there, and you are the ultimate beneficiary. Because your relationship with the spiritual master Krishna will be firmly established. Then you'll have that, Yasya Devi Parabhaktira, Yata Devi Tata Kuru. Otherwise, it is not by my reading. Even reading TLC. All the knowledge is there. But the realization comes only by having this implicit faith in the spiritual master and Krishna and following their instructions. What's the ultimate instruction? Sarvadhamma pritya jama mekam. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And what is that surrender? That surrender is what? 24/7, 365. Not just because, not when I want to, not when I feel like it, not 6 days, not 6 hours. No. So when you get to that platform where you no longer make any distinction, that this is my time and this is Krishna's time, then you're making advancement in spiritual life. Any questions? Right away. Lokik wants to challenge.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the
Put it down
class.
here, sorry.
I really liked the point where you mentioned that as a result of complete knowledge, we develop a desire to serve. My question is, I was just contemplating on my spiritual life, that when I was new in Krishna consciousness, I had a lot of desire to serve. But eventually I see that desire fading away. I see that if I can, sneak out of this service somehow. Why does this happen, and how can we prevent this from happening?
That's Maya's test. Why does anything happen? Forgetfulness of Krishna, Prabhupada said, is the definition of Maya. Maya's not just, the warden of this material prison house, but she is your constant companion as long as you're progressing in spiritual life up to the point of liberation. So you have to make the best use of the bad bargain. So the benefit of having this, how can you say, instruction being given through the medium of the mind. Because Bandhu Atmat Manastasya, the mind is the best friend or the worst thing. So what is the mind? The mind is simply Maya's workshop. Not the devil's workshop. That's a material consideration. They use it as an excuse. What do they say? The devil made me do it. Very famous tagline. One comedian, he used to use that punchline. That the devil made me do it. Because why? This is what people are taught in other philosophies. Not to take personal responsibility. They say, no, Satan made me do it. The devil made me do it. It wasn't me. A very famous serial killer in New York, the son of Sam. What was when he went to the court, what did he say? The devil made me do it. Killing all these innocent people. So that same voice that was in the son of Sam's head is also in your head. Because that's just the way Maya works. When Maya says, do this nonsense thing, what stops us is whatever intelligence we have derived, whatever benefit we have sustained from engaging in Krishna service, that is the inoculation. That's what protects us. Because then you question it. No, this is Maya. Why would I do that? Why would I go to the restaurant and eat some nonsense food stuff? Like you see, the first symptom, Gopal Krishna, stopped eating meat, stopped smoking cigarettes. So everyone who came to the temple, they immediately stopped these things. That's a test. The devotees wanted to know, how are you doing in your spiritual life? So you have to be aware of this. Of course, if you're not chanting, then how can you be aware? For the materialist, there's no difference between the mind and his intelligence, his lower self, his higher self. It's all the same. So therefore, people are acting. And the definition of this level of insanity and why it can be used in a court of law is because they don't. It's called intent. Unless the criminal intent is there, the crime has not been committed based on that level of so-called jurisprudence. It's bogus. but it's used. If a person is insane, he cannot understand that what he did was wrong, supposedly. And so if he could not understand the difference between right and wrong, then you cannot convict him on that basis of criminal intent called mens rea, criminal mind. He has to be found not guilty by reason of insanity. See, so everyone in the material world is insane because they have no understanding of the difference between right and wrong. Their difference between right and wrong goes up to a certain moral level. But they don't understand that if I am not serving God, then automatically I'm serving Maya. And therefore, Maya is my boss. And people are worshiping Maya. They're worshiping Durga for some material benefit. But they don't understand that when you worship Durga for some material benefit, she's also getting some exchange. What is she getting for that? Just like they try to make analogies. So the same principle is there in other religions. They say he sold or she sold her soul to the devil in exchange for some benefit. And so this is constantly going on. Otherwise, why do they have these sayings? People look for some specific benediction, material benediction, like to become the greatest blues guitarist in the world. It's a whole mythology. But the guy goes down to the crossroads, he meets the devil, and he sells his soul to the devil, and he becomes the most famous musician. And so this is going on. And people are doing it all the time, and they don't realize it. They're thinking, no, I'm just a good businessman. No, I'm making so many compromises. I'm committing so many, how can you say, moral and ethical transgressions in order to achieve this position that you don't even think about. I have to wipe out the Amazonian forest? No problem. Take it out. I have to kill 400 ostriches in Canada? Knock it out, no problem. So this is all going on. In someone's mind, they're justifying it. So you just have to ignore Maya's entreaties. At a certain point, you just realize that, yeah, you can understand between the voice of Maya and the voice of reason. This becomes second nature when you're chanting Hare Krishna. Maya's temptation is loud and clear. And so that is the mercy of the spiritual master, that he gave you that appreciation, how you can make that distinction. But if you choose not to make the distinction, that's up to you. And it takes constant effort. Because every second, the opportunity is there. Maya, Krishna, Maya, Krishna, Maya, Krishna. So don't become complacent. Examine your situation very carefully on a regular basis. Am I serving Krishna more than I'm serving Maya? And don't think that just being in the temple, no. Wherever you are, wherever your mind is, Maya is also present, even in the temple. You still have to make the conscious decision not to engage in activities that are contrary to my spiritual benefit. And that's anything that's not, how can you say, dovetailed with my relationship with my spiritual master. It has to be completely dovetailed. And if you don't know it, ask someone. Right? Prabhupada's famous suggestion to the devotee who had so many questions. And Prabhupada said, these are all common sense. And if you don't have any, Ask someone who does. So you're in the temple, there are so many older devotees. But if you're afraid to ask because you're afraid of the answer, then that's your problem. I don't want to get that answer. Let me ask someone who won't give me that answer. I'll ask this person. He'll give me the answer I want to hear. Don't ask the person who's been around the block 50 times. Right? Because I might not like the answer. But there's a reason. And Prabhupada was very clear how the society should be run. And so everyone will have the opportunity to do it based on what he is, how he has served the spiritual master and how he has understood and appreciated everything. Just like the first birth in the material world. What's the first birth in the material world? You drop down from wherever. We don't want to get into that aspect of it. Okay, but somehow or other you end up in the material world. What's your first birth? We discussed this in Prasad. You have to come to Prasad and listen to the reading. First birth is Lord Brahma. Your first birth in the material world is Lord Brahma. Highly exalted position. So what happened? What happened? I went from creating planets and, life forms, 8,400,000, all these different varieties, topmost planet down to the lowest. So how did I end up here? Okay, so we have this opportunity that, again, in the human form of life, to recognize the benediction. And it's not going to come by being, how can you say, a 50% devotee or a 20% devotee. You have to come up to that 100%, that Sthayi Bhava platform, where my only business is to serve the spiritual master in Krishna. I have no other business. That is your mantra, your mood, and ultimately it's the mission. So we're 15 minutes into prasadam. Everyone's going to have to eat quickly? No. Because it's Sunday, we have a lot to do. So we'll finish the class here. Lokik's question was very nice. I'm sure everyone had the same thing on his mind. Don't give Maya an inch. Don't give her a millimeter for those following the metric system. Don't give her a millimeter. Okay? It's all Krishna all the time. That's our motto. All Krishna all the time. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Purports ki. Gaur Premanandi. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki.